רוחנו כי על החסד גמלתם חסד, שילמתם חסד, בעל הגמול והחסד לשלם לנו ולכם שכר החסד. Tonight, the Darush of the Shiv'ah, from the passing of our dear Hazan, teacher, servant of Hashem, servant of the Sibur, servant of our Shul, for many years, הזקן הנכבד והכשר, סעדיה שלום, known as Felix Torgueman, Ben Miriam, Wahadonai Tinachenu Be'Gan Eden. You heard many things in the funeral. And by the way, we talk about funeral. There's something in the last few years, something bothering me a lot, which is not on place, it's out of place. It's ugly. When the deceased lay down in the funeral, and it's not the people's fault, it's the speaker's fault. Jokes and laughter. Not when the deceased is in front of you. This is a terrible mistake. When you have a eulogy, it's time to cry, to mourn. In the Shiv'ah, it's a healing process, the Shaloshim. If there's a comment that caused some laughter, it's okay. But not in the funeral. Rabotai, please pass the message, and you say in the funeral, just say no laughter. So the Darush of Shiva, and you heard many things in the funeral, beautiful things about Felix. It's a personality. Can he talk? So beautiful, so many beautiful things. A century of stories. He went through, when the world went through changes, and his life went through changes, and Felix stayed the same Felix. And it's very interesting to see how he adjusts himself to different cultures, different times. There's a lot of beautiful things. And I'm not going to repeat myself, be too repetitive. You heard many things, you're going to hear many things. I just want to, I have a few minutes for my experience, something very unique about Felix that maybe we, the rabbis, and people that deal with people can learn from. You know, Felix was an address to many people that were not part of the shul. People all the way in the high 20s, in the west side, I don't know from where. People that were insecure, they didn't make it in America. They're not part of the shul. They don't have seed that costs a few $1,000s. They're not that involved. They had a hard time in America. Many of them came from Israel. Some of them came from Egypt, and they ended in different avenues. Not that observant. Not that connected to a rabbi. Not that welcome in the shuls. For many reasons, sometimes it's their faults too. Felix was the address. Hacham, there's a bar mitzvah, wala shwoya mush ala addo, you know, and he hinting to me, parents are separated, father went with the Goya, all kind of terrible stories. And Hacham allemto, طلع لي روحي, he doesn't know Hebrew, he go to public school, allemto, please, there's a bar mitzvah, fellow bar mitzvah, the only, I mean, please, they need a rabbi. Weddings, you gave me weddings case, I have to check. So many checks before the wedding, I don't know the family. Are you kosher Jewish? What is your yahus? But Felix was the address. People felt loved by him. He was their connection to Torah. People didn't want to throw away the Torah. They were unfortunate because of life. I don't know how they ended in this very far edges in the community. Felix was the one that welcomed them. Showed them that for him, there's no difference between them and anybody else in the shul. I have so many cases that for him, for his zechut, I joined him. I go to weddings, I don't know nobody, and Felix is the Hazan, offer them to be the Hazan. He walks and sings, and Baracha Shevi'it, 70, 75 years old, put all his effort with love, with pride. This is the only thing that I want to add for many things that you heard. And why? Ki lo yiddah mimenu niddah. We don't push away nobody. He came from a place in Egypt. Unfortunately, in Egypt, there were many people that didn't go through the Jewish education. Egypt was a cosmopolitan place. People came from Greece, from Morocco, from Yemen, all over. There were people, they didn't know how to read Hebrew. Chacham Aaron Shwek Alav Shalom, a rabbi, told me why they established Ahava ve'Ahva in 1928. Because most of the Jews didn't send their kids to the community school, which was a free education, Madrasat al-Sibin. They sent to Catholic schools, good families coming from great families. They thought the future of the children will be accountants, bankers, big merchants, languages. This is why the Egyptians speak few languages, Italian and English and French. And Ahava ve'Ahva was established to give them the basic education. In Egypt, nobody never ever was asked to stay away from the community. The rabbinate took care of everybody. Even people that their style of life was not exactly what the rabbis liked and what we look for. Felix came from this culture. And he was the one, and you know in the community what it means, community. I don't have to tell you, we are the community. We push everybody away. It's not from our community. It could be wonderful people. I have experience. Boys went to the best yeshivot in America, Baltimore, whatever it is. Not from our community. There's such an attitude. Coming from kosher family, both parents wonderful people. They happen to be Ashkenazi, or Persian, or Bukharian. Could be. Felix, lo yivhin ben dam ledam. All equal. Ahavat Israel, Ahavat HaBeriyot, מקרבן התורה, מתלמידיו של אהרון הכהן, אוהב שלום ורודף שלום, אוהב את הבריות ומקרבן התורה. Every word I said now from Pirkei Avot, this was Felix Torgueman. This is what you learn to go back, always to emphasize. Rabotai, to connect ourselves to the old-timers philosophy. They were not wrong. We think we came to America, we discover now what does it mean to be a good Jew, what it means to be religious. They knew also. And they knew how to be mekarev everybody. And Baruch Hashem, from this small apartment called Ahava ve'Ahva in Egypt, from this small apartment, it was an apartment, not even a beautiful building like our building. There's today maybe 12 Ahava ve'Ahva in the world. All the families of Ahava ve'Ahva in Egypt. All the students and the children and grandchildren, you can fill up many shuls from this small apartment. Why? Ahava ve'Ahva. Love and brotherhood. And Felix was fitting into those words of our congregation, Ahava ve'Ahva. מנשמתו הקדושה והטהורה ומעשיו הטובים יעמדו לו לזכות לפני בורא העולם ויתקבל ברחמים לפני מלאכי העליון ותעלה נשמתו בסור החיים והשם ייתן חיים ארוכים to his wife Rita, to his wonderful boys, daughters, his sons, grandsons, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, daughters-in-laws, son-in-laws, his students, that he considered them like the children. חיים טובים וארוכים, לא יישמע שוד ושבר בגבולכם, ונשמע תמיד בשורות טובות, אמן ואמן. דבר אחד אמרתי, זה מספיק. חזור לחזור כל אחד
את הרבנים. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני, אותך אבקש, שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו. David HaMelech Alav HaShalom exclaims in Tehillim, there's one request that I have. It's to sit bevet Amonai. It's to dwell in the house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I remember the first time visiting Felix Torgueman, and as I sat with him in an old age home, he began this pasuk. He was not a young man. He got confused in the middle of the pasuk and lost track. I finished the pasuk for him. The smile that broke out on his face in that moment, and I know the smile from his son Joey, the laughter in that moment as he looked at me and said to me, "You got it. That's it." But it wasn't me. That was him. Shifti bevet Adonai kol yemei hayai, as I think about that pasuk, was what defined Felix Torgueman. In fact, earlier today, I shared with someone in the school that I was going to be at the Arayat of Felix Torgueman. It was one of the secretaries in Yeshiva Flatbush. She began crying immediately, just at mention of his name. So I said, "Were you close to the family? Were you close to Felix?" She said, "I was close to Ahava ve'Ahva. I grew up in Ahava ve'Ahva. And his loss is my loss because he was Ahava ve'Ahva. Bet Amonai was Bet Felix." I remember one time sitting with Felix and asking him, "Tell me about your childhood. I'm always curious about the childhood of our elders." So he said, "I grew up in a city called Tanka." He said it was between the great cities of Cairo and Alexandria, and it was a small city. So far I was getting the answer to my question. Then he said there were 4 Batei Knesiot. And he began to detail in the greatest of detail every single difference of each one of these Batei Knesiot. He was going off track. I wanted to hear about his childhood. So I paused him in the middle. I came a little bit closer. Maybe he hadn't heard me. I said, "But tell me about your childhood. Tell me about it, what it was like." So he says, "Well, there was Rabbi Burla." Okay. He says, "And I learned so much from him." So I came even closer and I said, "Felix, tell me about your friends. Tell me about what you were doing." He says, "At the age of 25, I learned Kiryah, I learned Shehita." The description was clear. Shifti bevet Adonai kol yemei hayai. For Felix, his life was Bet Amonai. His life was Kiryah. His life was Shehita. His life was Hachamim, was Batei Knesiot. In fact, every time we met, he had a principle. First, we start with the Kiryah of the week, but I did nothing. I opened up the Chumash for him, and he read the Kiryah every single time. Now, I hope it wasn't because he thought I didn't know how to read. I think it was because that's what he believed was a conversation. Conversation begins with the Kiryah of that week. Nothing more and nothing less. So in that same first conversation, I said, "Felix, tell me about Egypt," trying to get him more focused. Egypt. Almost 3,000 years after Biriyat Olam, Avotenu Yaseu Mimisraim, our forefathers left Egypt. So I said, "What are you referring to?" He says, "Well, if you calculate from Adam ad Noah, from Noah ad Abraham, he started doing the calculation. Now, for Felix, Egypt was not only his childhood, it was not only Batei Knesiot, it was his connection to Torah Amonai. That was for Felix, in my understanding, his life. In the coming parasha and parashot, the Torah describes the people involved in the Mishkan. Ubelev kol hacham lev natati chokhmah. The Torah describes the people involved as not only knowledgeable, hachamim, but as hachmei lev. And the simple interpretation to the word live in that context is not only to a heart, but to a mind. But the Torah does use the word heart. They were smart in their heart. They were hachamim bilibam. It's that description in my mind that most fully captures Felix Torgueman. He was passionate about his chokhmah. Torah was not just an intellectual endeavor. Life as a Jew was not just what he did. It resided in his lev. It was when I heard his kiryah. Just a few days ago I told the sons, I have several recordings, but I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands of them. But the kiryah of Felix Torgueman at 96 years old, when his voice was cracking a little bit, when his strength was diminished, but what was felt throughout was the Hacham Lev, was not only Chokhmat Torah, was his passion, was his emotion, was his Shifti B'vet Adonai Kol Yemei Hayai. That for him was Ahad Sha'alti, his one request. Tehi Nishmato Serudah B'Zlor Hayim.
With the Rabbanim, with the children, Mrs. Torgueman, just like to share with you a few words. The Midrash Tanhuman, this week's parasha, says, Shelosha Shemot Nikri'u Lo Le'adam. A person has three names. Ehad Ma Shekorim Lo Abi Ve'imo, the name that the parents give. Ve'ehad Ma Shekurin Lo Ben Adam, how people call you. Ve'ahad Ma Shekonehu La'atzmo, the name that a person makes for himself. Tov Mikulan Ma Shekonehu La'atzmo, and the Midrash says Tov Shem Mishem Tov V'yom HaMavet Miyom V'aledo. 20 years ago, I remember at Arayat, I sat over this Midrash, and Felix was there. He went wild. He went wild. He loved it. And what made him so excited, he came to me and he shared with me the following part of the Midrash, which says, "B'sha'a she'adam nolad, en hakol yod'in mihu." Nobody knows. The baby's born. Niftar b'shem tov, mashpiya ma'asim tovim. באים ישראל מטפלים עמו, עושים עמו גמולות חסד, מכריזים שבחו ואומרים פלוני זה, כמה צדקות, כמה תורה, כמה מצוות עשה, משכבות תהיה עם הצדיקים. What made this man so special? This man, he did not live in Olam Hazeh. His whole world was a Mesilat Yesharim. His matara, his goal was not how much I can achieve here, how much can I do for later. Hayom la'asotam u'mahar lekabel secharam. I'm appalled. I never in my life heard anyone write his own eulogy. When Joey pulled out the letter and he showed it to me, I sleep at night with excitement. How does a person do such a thing? How does he write that I live till 90 years old? How does he know? What is it, Ruach HaKodesh? Who writes about himself? He writes a whole paragraph, all 2 pages about his life. Does anybody know what will be? Borei Olam himself, B'Kdoshav Lo Yamin. Borei Olam doesn't put his name on anybody living. People could change. A person can be good today and tomorrow he can become sour. But not Felix. Felix lived differently than everybody else. He lived with a matara, with a goal. He had to make sure to do the right thing. And that's why, as the Hakam said, Hakam Shimon, Shibadel Lahayim, Shihayim Tuvim Baruchim, how he went far, he went everywhere, because he didn't live for himself. He lived for the Kahal. The Gemara says we are Am Yisrael Rahmanim Baishanim Gomle Hasadim. Doesn't that fit his description? You look at his eyes. His eyes were Ayin Toba. He had a good eye for everybody. Rahman. Baishan. He was Sanua. He wasn't there showing off. Gomel Hasadim. העולם עומד על 3 דברים, על התורה, על העבודה והגמילות חסדים. Does that describe Felix? Of course it does. איש אמונות רב ברכות. פסוק משלי. איש אמונות. He was the איש of אמונה. The Vilna Gaon says, המאמין. He had אמונה. והוא השלם במידת הביטחון רב ברכות. Did he not bless every single person in the shul and abroad? Anytime he saw you, did he give you beracha? Yes. You know why? Because he's ish emunot. He had emunah. When a person has emunah, he doesn't care about himself. What do I care if you become richer than I? What do I care if you become better than me? I believe in Borei Olam. Whatever Hashem gives me, this is what it is. The life that I have, this is what it is. He had emunah. When a person has the midah bitachon, his eyes are big for everybody, not for himself. He has ayin tovah. Ayin tov ayin hu yeborach. Ki natan min lachmo ledal. Doesn't that describe Felix? Tov ayin hu yeborach. You know why? Ki natan min lachmo ledal. His children were telling me, he's the type of a person, when FedEx, UPS would come in to give the package, he would say 1 minute. He would make him a cream cheese sandwich and give him a cream cheese sandwich and give him something to eat. Come in. Rabotai, I saw every single day. Every single day. I live across the street from Felix. He would take out the food and put it in the street, in the gutter, for the cats to come, the birds, and he did it with such rahmanut, as if he's feeding the king, Borei Olam servants. My shed is full of cats. No mice, but full of cats. Now where are they going to go? Where are these cats going to go? But this was him. Tov ayin hu yeborach, ki natan min lachmo ledal. He took care of people. Was he wealthy? Was he rich? He was richer than everybody here. Because he had tov ayin. He had emunah. What is emunah? Rabbi Miller says, Vayi omenet hadasa. Amanah means faithful. Amanah means loyal. Was he not loyal to this community? Did he ever swerve? Did he ever move away? Did he ever? No. Ahava v'ahava was his blood, was his life. He was omen, he was straight faithful. One morning, I'm leaving, one Shabbat morning, I'm leaving going to Knis, and I see Felix, alav shalom, without a wheelchair, without nobody there taking him, and he was trying to do it on his own. Now, talking about Felix, all he needs is 20-mile windshield factor, and he's already wobbling. And nothing, no cane, no wheelchair, nobody's there. It says, Ma'ega then guy they come. And he wanted to go to the Knis. And I'm walking him to shul. I got to my shul very late. Rabbi, you slept late, you know how it goes. But that wasn't it. I walked with him, mamash, step by step, and the tehillim, and the berachot, and just amazing, amazing. Blessing my children. We couldn't go past Quentin Road and East 9th. We got to Ateret. He says, take me back home. I can't do it. I can't continue. He was too tired. Take me back home. I said, so suddenly over here in Ateret. La, that's not my Knis. Unbelievable. Faithful. Amanah. This is not his shul. I took him into the lobby, I sat him down, I got him some orange juice, whatever it is, we took care of whatever had to be taken care of. Then we got somebody else to take him, and I think he ended up to the Knesset that day. But it was unbelievable. The goy, Rabotai, the goy on the block, Don, used to drive him to Knesset sometimes. The goy, that's how much it meant to him. He paid him, he didn't pay him, that's not the issue. But this is what he was. Now, if there's no one taking him to shul, I wasn't warned the night before. 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, he's banging my door. Ringing the bell. My wife says, what happened? Who's downstairs? I don't know. And then when I don't answer, I go, I don't know what it is. Dudu, افتح الباب. Who's this? أنا تحت. I go downstairs, Felix, all dressed, ready to go to the shul with his fur hat, that cute hat. If you want to sell it, you know, you could put auction it. But he was there waiting. I came down my robe. I wasn't ready. Why are you sleeping? Tell him, yeah, people sleep, you know. Anyway, I tell him, okay, come inside, wait for me inside, and I'll take you to shul. The respect that he had was unbelievable. I don't sit inside. It's early in the morning. Your wife is naima. He wouldn't walk into the house. He waited outside in the cold. But the emunah that he had no fear. He had no fear. You see him on the porch. How many times you see him on the porch? It's beautiful. You know, it brought me back old days. You see a man in pajamas at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you know how nice that is? It's so nice. It's like it brought you back to the old days, the Jalabiyya days, and he's there, and he's reading Tehillim, and it's unbelievable. The whole block gained from him. We all gained from him. Hatam Sofer says the word ish is ahava, yirah, and simcha. He used to tell every bar mitzvah boy, today you're a man, ish. This is the time to have ahava, yirah, and simcha. And this was Felix. Felix was always what can I say? He's gonna be definitely missed. But did I personally appreciate it enough? Did I get the most out of him? I don't know if I did, honestly, to tell you. But there's one thing that we have to realize. He lived for Olam Haba. For a person to write his eulogy, to write his speech, how many of us can write our own speeches? I would be afraid to write mine. I would be afraid. But this is what he did. And he lived it. And he lived every single day the same day. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. The same thing. You were a very lucky community. Ahava was very, very, very lucky to have this man. Yeh Ratzon, shezchuto ya'amod lanu. B'ezrat Hashem should be militz yosher. He loved to sing. Believe me, he's up there. He sang Shira. He singing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And B'ezrat Hashem, he should be militz yosher and pray for his wife, and for his children and grandchildren, and for the entire community. Ahava. As the rabbi says, 12 shuls worldwide. There should be another 120 B'ezrat Hashem worldwide. There should be even more. Ad en mispar. And yeh ratzon shenizkeh b'yakol tzedek v'merav yameinu amen.
נתן בליבו הוא ואהוליה בן אחיסמך למטה דן. Rashi explained ואהוליה משבט דן מן הירודים שבשבטים מבני השפחה והשווהו המקום לבצלאל למלאכת המשכן והוא מגדולי השבטים לקיים מה שנאמר ולא ניכר שוע לפני דל. Rashi explained
why the pasuk put Bezalel and Aholiab together ביחד באותו פסוק באותה נשימה? What's the reason they're together? Rashi explained that Bezalel מן החשובים שבשבטים, from the importance of the שבטים, but Aholiab the opposite, from the יהודי שבשבטים. And they put them together. For what? What's the reason? לקיים מה שנאמר ולא ניכר שוע לפני דל. That there is no difference אצל הקדוש ברוך הוא between if you're coming from this family or you're coming from this family. שוע, כמו שחכם אומר, הוא מבקש שנסביר את זה באנגלית, שוע, it's rich, and דל, it's a poor. So if you have a person that is rich, usually you feel it's a bit better than the other one. By הקדוש ברוך הוא, כולם אותו דבר. And I want to tell you something. Also, it's Felix. He didn't care if you're rich, you're not rich, or from which family you're coming from. December 2004, I came first time to Brooklyn. I lived in Westchester. I looked for a shul. I didn't know nothing here in Brooklyn. I looked for a shul to pray. I was outside of Ahava, the old Ahava Be'ahva. And I looked when Minyan starts, where I can pray Minha. There's a guy, old guy. He coming to me and asked me, "Where are you looking?" I told him, "I'm looking for Minha." He told me soon, 25 minutes is going to start Minha here in Ahava. He took me yad beyad. You don't know who I am. I'm new here. He asked me, "What's your name? Bet min enta?" And he started asking me questions. And I felt a bit comfortable. I know zero about Brooklyn. I was in America maybe a year. And Felix sit with me before tefillah, talk to me, see what I need. Maybe I need something. And year by year, I came to visit Ahava, by the Tawahid. And every year, Felix saw me in Ahava, in the Tawahid, and come to me and talk to me and let me feel good. Let me feel that I'm connected to this place. It's exactly the way how Hacham Shimon starts this Darush. That he took people from nowhere and he spoke to them. And he let them feel comfortable, let them feel part of the community. I felt very not part of the community in the beginning, but Felix, he was one of the people. He was the first person that I met in Brooklyn, the first person. And after, Baruch Hashem, after a few years, Joey called me, Sha'arei Shalom Nida Hazan. And Baruch Hashem, from almost 9 years, I'm already in Sha'arei Shalom. Joey, this Shabbat, you told me, I spoke about, in the Shiur, I spoke about Shabbat. How it's important to be me'aneg et Shabbat. And he told me, you know what is my onik Shabbat? Is the knis. Is the shul. Is the beautiful kiddush that we have with 70, 80 people coming every Shabbat to learn Torah. You told me this is onik Shabbat. It's yours, yes, but it's your father. I feel that I am part of this family. A family of Torgueman. It's all the grandkids, it's the family, as the wife that I know I already of a few years too, and the grandkids, Sakal, Eli. I know that you did so much for your father, for your grandfather. I know that you was there always for him. Always you send me text message, pray for him, please Rabbi, do for him. And you did it. And I know that Felix is in a good place in Shamayim. ובני בנים הריהם כבנים, and you part of it. בעזרת השם, תהא נשמתו צרורה בצרור החיים, אמן.
I remember the first time that I met Mr. Felix Torgueman. I had heard a lot about him, legend, all that he did, all that he taught, but I had yet to see him. And then we was at a wedding, and I was under the chuppah with a bunch of other rabbis, and I see like a commotion under the chuppah, like what's happening? And I'm trying to figure out what's going on, like what's going on. I see an older man. Now usually under a chuppah, the young couple's in the middle, the old people are on the side. But this old man was like right in the middle, running the show. So I said, who is this? I said, you don't know who this is? This is Mr. Torgueman. And the aura, the legend, the myth, all that surrounded Mr. Torah was unbelievable watching it. Every rabbi was listening to what he had to say. He studied when the berachot go, what to do, when it should be done. His little emotion, everything was dictated by him. You know, when you're a rabbi and you're young, and I think I'm still young, you look up to a lot of people. You look up to older rabbis, you learn from them. But you also look up to people, many of which don't have the title rabbi. Because there's a tremendous amount of lessons that they can teach you too. As the Shiva ends, the job of the coming year is to take the lessons of this man and incorporate them. There are hundreds, but I'm going to give you 5 lessons that I'm going to take from Mr. Felix Torgueman. Lesson number 1 is that money is overrated. When you hear that a man has no bank account, I don't even understand it. What does it mean to have no bank account? How did he pay bills? How did he function? And then you realize that's how he functioned. He had no bank account. Nothing to worry about. He doesn't have to know how much is in the account. Is my check going to bounce? He doesn't care. He's good. When our rabbis say, Marbeh Nechasim, Marbeh Da'aga, it's real. Because all the people with bank accounts, how long do they live? With no bank account. 97 and 98 awesome years. With no bank account. No checks ran out. No credit, nothing. Just living life day to day. Nothing to think about. Nothing to worry about. Doesn't know how much is there. No checking, savings, nothing. Lesson number 2 is that it's unbelievable how many people you can impact when you live life right. Mr. Torgueman impacted people in all kinds of countries. Impacted people in his own will. He wrote, I taught over 350 students, and that was over 35 years ago. And he's taught hundreds since. One of his sons was somewhere, I forget where, and a person comes over to him and says, I need to invite you, Mr. Torgueman, I need to invite you to a bar mitzvah. I think it was Joey. Joey says, okay, thank you. He says, my son's bar mitzvah is going to be in Miami. You need to come. I'm so excited I saw you. I need you to come. Finally, after a few minutes, Joey says, excuse me, but who are you? He says, you don't know who I am? Your father gave me bar mitzvah lessons. And now it's time for my son to get bar mitzvah. Your father changed my life. When you live life right, you can impact so many people over so long time. A rabbi said, have many students. Have them when you're young, have them when you're old. You don't know which one's going to become great. And Mr. Torgueman had hundreds and hundreds of students. Lesson number 3. You can raise an unbelievable family even if you're always in shul. Now, I don't know if you realize what it means to be always in shul. It means that before everyone gets there, he's there. It means after everyone leaves, he's there. It means on Shabbat, this is true, Mr. Torgueman didn't go home Shabbat day. That means he came to shul in the morning and he went home after Havdalah. Now I'm going to be honest with a rabbi. Even rabbis, we get ready to go home. 11:30, 12 o'clock. Okay, Hajj, classes, the speeches, we're done. Let's go home. No, he had his eggs, so a little bit of food in shul. And didn't go home. You know what that is? And again, whenever we try to get people to go to class, people tell us, oh, Rabbi, you know, I have to go home. Shalom bayit, shalom bayit, shalom bayit. My foot. Look at Mr. Torgueman. Look at his marriage. Look at his children. Look at his family. Living in shul. We're close to all the Torgueman boys. Solomon from back in the day when we were in my first classes in Deal. If people listen to the old recordings, you'll hear 75% me and 25% Solomon. Comments. And then Joey prays with us in the shul in Deal for over a decade. And then Moses in our shul now in Maggid David, we see all the time. He's always involved, always there. Because you see, when the Torgueman boys know you, they don't just know you, they talk to you a lot. My fourth lesson is you don't need $1 million to be able to support your children. When you hear Joey tell the stories of his opening of the shul and his father in those original meetings, and in that first Sukkot when the shul was just beginning, say, Dad, I need a Baal Koreh, and his father walks all the way to the shul. I don't know if he was in his 70s or 80s at the time. Walks all the way to the shul and reads the Sefer Torah, and then says, I'm going to give a donation of all of my life savings. And then he goes home and says, how much is your life savings that you don't have a bank account? He says, I have saved right over here by the steam, whatever, I have right over here, $5,300. $5,300 when that's all you have, when you never cared about money for a day in your life, it has an unbelievable impact on your children. Look at the shul he built. Look at the kahal he built. You can support your children. You don't need to have $1 million. He even, this is a true story, he even bought a rabbi a house. One of the rabbis that spoke in the past week, he bought the rabbi a house. He said, I'm going to get a down payment, I'm going to raise the money, we're going to buy the rabbi a house. He spoke to the person, he said, no, you're not charging that high, you're going to charge this amount, it's a rabbi. And bought him a house. You don't need $1 million to be able to support. And finally, lesson number 5. The right way to live is that every single day of your life, you're an Eved Hashem. Every single day of your life, you're an Eved Hashem. Mr. Felix Torgueman was, even when he wasn't in shul, lived in shul. Mr. Felix Torgueman, his Tehillim and his reading and his teaching and his serving and his loving of the people, every day was an Eved Hashem. And that's how you become a man who's really kadosh. And you know, the Pasuk says, I'm going to rest amongst you. Amongst you means in you. We had the opportunity to watch a man, whether you talked to him a lot, whether he taught you a lot, whether you just saw him in shul or just saw him on the street or saw him at a wedding. You had a chance to watch a man who lived life as an Eved Hashem. Not just for 3 years in yeshiva, not just to put his children in yeshiva without $1 to do so, but his entire life is serving Hashem. So to me, there's hundreds of lessons to learn from this man. But when I go home tonight, I'm never going to forget these 5. Money's overrated. It's unbelievable how many people you can impact if you live life right. You can raise an unbelievable family even if you're in shul all the time. You don't need $1 million to support your children. And you're an Eved Hashem when you never stop serving Him a day in your life. And so I, like everybody else in this room, don't just say it's an honor to have known him, but it's an honor to have learned from him.
I may not be as great as a speaker as the Hachamim has spoke, but I'll try my best to make the points that I want to make about my father. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach. Hashem gave us a Sadiq for almost over a century to accomplish a mission. A mission that took him from Cairo, Egypt, to Paris, France, to Seattle, Washington, and to finally Brooklyn, New York. Each and every one of us here, gentlemen and ladies, we all have a mission. We may not know our mission, but we do have a mission. Some people accomplish their mission, some people, unfortunately, they don't. My father knew his mission from day one. Right after his mother passed away, one of the Eid of Pesach, he took it upon himself. He made a neder to his mother. I don't know anybody over here, even Hachamim, knew about this, or anybody spoke about this. But what was his neder? What was his shivu'ah? Mommy, don't worry. I'm not going to get married. I'm going to marry off my two sisters before I get married. He was working for a company called Philip Morris, a company that sold tobacco and cigarettes for many, many years. He was a traveling salesman. He started to save as much money as he can, and he married off his two sisters. He would work from Sunday to Thursday, and that was his work. Friday, he did a different job. He did a job of shahita for all the Syrian people, the Egyptian people, whatever you want to call it, the Jews in Mitzrayim. He did it b'hinam, he did it for free. Upon doing the shahita for Madame Rachel Moseri, one Eid of Shabbat, he met my mother when he was there. Now mind you, a lot of Jewish people over there in Egypt were very wealthy. My grandparents were very wealthy. And they had 10 khadamin that they owned. So the place was like rocking and rolling. How would my father know who his wife was going to be, or who Miss Frida Torgueman was, or Frida Moseri? But his eyes was focused, and that's how he met her. So he did the shahita and everything, and he left. In 1953, August 1953, he married my mother. Hacham Avodah Yosef, he was the chief rabbi in Egypt for 2 years. He went around and checked the shahita of Mitzrayim throughout many shuhatim, and he wrote one of his books. I'm not sure which one it was. He said the shahita shel ish kasher Sa'adiyat Torgueman hiya ahita shahita shel Mitzrayim. This was the only shahita that was kasher that he saw, that he witnessed. It was the only shahita that he could vouch for. The rest, he wasn't 100% sure. He was approached by gunpoint by these shuhatim. Please sign my ta'udah, please sign the papers. So he told them, don't worry, leave it here. Don't worry, let me study it first. Let me look at it. Come back next week, or come back in a few weeks, whatever it was, and I'll give you my answer. Within that period of time, he fled back to Eretz Israel. It was Sakanat Nefashot, and he left. And that was the story of the Hakam al-Badiyah being in Mitzrayim. In 1960, we left Egypt, and as it is written in the Chumash, when the Jewish people were busy collecting jewelry, money, whatever it is, Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm not comparing my father, Chas v'Shalom, to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was busy collecting Atzmot Yosef to take it with him. Yosef HaSadiq said, please don't bury me in Mitzrayim, take my bones with you. So Moshe Rabbeinu was busy doing that. What was my father busy with doing? He went to his shul, Neve Shalom, and he went to the Heichal, and he took out a Sefer Torah that he had donated in memory of his brother, and he wrapped it around him. He wrapped it around the whole kalaf, he wrapped it around him, wore his jacket, her sweater, whatever it may be, and he said, Hashem be with us, Yallah, we're leaving. Many Syrian people, Egyptian people were caught at customs. I don't know what happened to them, but my father went. He had the bitachon and emunah, like the rabbis were saying. He did it because he was focused. He knew his mission. He knew the priorities. Now, as soon as he came to Brooklyn, New York, there's a pasuk that I flipped it around a little bit, and I said, "Ve'ele torodot Sa'adya ben Miriam, Sa'adya ish sadiq, tamim haya bedorotav." His mission also started in Brooklyn. What was his mission? His mission was, he brought with him the true ta'amim of the Torah, the true way of saying Shir HaShirim, the true way of saying Tehillim, the true way, Shir HaShirim, Megillah, and so on and so forth. He brought that with him, and he taught over 1,000 boys, be it in my house, at their house, in the shul, whatever. It was his enjoyment. But I heard from my father that the boys trembled. They were scared, very scared. Why? Any mistake that they made, my father would repeat it. Zelot tov. You made a mistake. And they would be scared. And it would go on and on and on. But when the day came at their bar mitzvah, and my father was standing next to them, and they read the parashah, word by word, not one mistake was made. Not one mistake. And later on, they kissed his hand and said, Felix, thank you very much. I appreciate that. When there was an occasion, like Hakam Shimon was saying, he made it his business to be up there, to make a beracha during the weddings, and even during a Brit Milah. He would sing a song, no matter what song it was, and not because he wanted to do it. He wanted to teach our generation, our future generation, to emulate him and to carry on his minhagim and his legacy. Ezehu Ashir Hasameach Behilko. Like Rabbi Hager was saying, and many other rabbis here were saying, he was content with what he had. He was happy with his lot. As word for word, the translation of the pasuk. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a story that happened when he was working for BB Continental Corporation. Like I was saying before, Tamim Hayya B'dorotav, he was ish kasher. He was complete. When people spoke to him, and people discussed many business transactions, or ideas, what should I do, Felix, whatever it was. Mr. Nuri Dayan, Mr. Dave Bibi, Mr. Reuben Bibi, Alava Shalom, all of them, they saw my father. We were living on Bay Parkway. My father was praying sometimes in Ahayezer, sometimes in Ahbad Ahbad on 67th Street. They saw that this man was Ish Kasher, true, Yashar. They gave him a job working for BB Continental Corporation as the head manager of the warehouse for almost 45 years, 49 years, whatever. Now this story I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, now you have to go back and say to yourself, there was no computers, there was no any kind of inventory control at that time. The only inventory control that Mr. Nuri Dayan and Dave Bibi had was index cards. Index cards that they knew each and every aisle of the warehouse, how many pieces of this, how many pieces of that chandelier, how many pieces of arms, whatever. And that's how Dave Bibi would go to Italy and buy his inventory. One day my father goes to deck 3 and he says, I have a feeling there's some inventory missing, but I can't really put my finger on it. Are you sure, Felix? I'm positive. I just feel it in me. Okay. So at that time they didn't have a security guard or anything like that. They hired a security guard to stand by the door. As the bell rang, 4 o'clock, that security guard says, okay, open your lunchbox, open your coat, whatever it was. And surely they found pieces of crystal, pieces of arms of chandeliers, and some other things like wires or whatever it was. What's this for? What's that for? Oh, I don't know. They started to deny the whole story. But after questioning them, an hour, 2 hours later, they finally confessed. They all went to the person's house where they said everything is there. And guess what they found, gentlemen? They found a showroom full of chandeliers. A showroom full of chandeliers hanging from the ceilings. And they were selling chandeliers that they stole from BB Continental. My father told him, you see, my father would never say something that was not true. Never. Going forward, he made everybody happy and comfortable, and he enjoyed his hazanut. People enjoyed being with him. During the Shiv'ah, I heard many cousins of mine would say, you know, Solomon, I would just, Motzei Shabbat, it would always be my pleasure to give him a ride home. Why? I enjoyed his words. He would give me a beracha. We would sing songs in the car. But guess where my father would sit? He would sit in the back. Why? He never liked the safety belt. He says, that's not for me. Didn't like it. He just felt like it was like too confined on him. He would sit in the back. He doesn't like sitting in the front. So he would sing and tell his berachot, or give the person berachot from the back seat. That was him. You can't change person's ways. In Pirkei Avot it says, like the Hachamim were saying before, he would accept everybody with a cheerful smile and just a happy way of connecting with a person. He would tell people jokes and make people happy, and they loved him. He was truly a legend in our community, gentlemen, and a father to all of you. I was asked to mention this by my sister-in-law, Marie, Moses' wife. In the early days, when they were just married, he took my sister-in-law shopping for groceries and food for Pesach. So usually you have your list, and you would go to a supermarket, you would go to Pomegranate, you go to Moishi's, whatever it is. Not my father. My father took her from store to store, and he bought her a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, whatever it was, masah from here, wine from here, meat from here, whatever it was, whatever she needed, he went from store to store. Marie asked him, Dad, what are you doing this for? Because I want you to learn one thing. I want to give everybody business. That was his thought. I want to give everybody some business. So they should continue to be matzliach in their business. That was his theory. That was his way of thinking. Last but not least, before I want to thank the family, I just want to say a story that happened to me that I experienced on Sunday. After, as the mitzvah left, my wife is holding me in my hand, and we're walking right past the shul. I'm going to go wash my hands and come to the house. There was a car that was double parked. All of a sudden, the window came down, and I hear somebody say to me, Sorry, Istanna, Al-Zakalimak. Solomon, wait, I want to speak to you. I have something to say to you. He comes out of the car, he grabs me, hugs me, and starts crying on my shoulder. Tells me, you don't know this story. No, I never told it to anybody, but I'm going to tell it to you. You're the oldest. I'm going to tell this to you. What was it? He says, I had a severe heart attack or a stroke, excuse me. And they took me to the hospital, and I went into a coma. People would come to visit me. My wife was outside. They would look from the window, from outside the room, and they would see me lying there in a coma. I don't know who they were. I have no idea. Your father came to visit me, and my wife is telling me this story. Your father came to visit me, and he asked my wife, can I come in to sit with him? Just for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I just want to be with him. She says, Felix, for you, anything. Enta ish kasher, tfadal. Come on in. He goes in, he tells her, please close the door. I want to be with him for 2-3 minutes. He sits down next to his bed, opens up his Tehillim, he says a few perahim of Tehillim, and after that, puts his book, closes it, put it back in his jacket or his coat, and he put his hand on this person. He blesses him, says, may Hashem bless you and give you long life. And I know that you're going to make it. I just have that feeling you're going to make it. And you should recover quickly and come out of your coma as quick as possible. He gets up and he leaves the hospital. An hour and a half later, that person, Felix Green, woke up from his coma. He saved my life, he said to me. And I started to cry. And he was crying more than I was crying. Without your father, he said, He must be a malach. Now, I'm not saying this because he's my father. Like many hachamim during the funeral, and even now, they said he was a special man. He sure was a special person. A malach that we don't know about, or maybe we know about, but every word and every milah that he said, Hashem made it true. Hashem made it true. And that's the story that I wanted to bring out last before I want to thank the family. I want to thank Maurice Shalom for all of his devotion, his love, his guidance through our difficult times. I want to thank my brothers Joey and Musa, my sisters Mary and Rachel, my nephews Ellie, Sakal, and Freddie for being there for my father day in and day out whenever he needed it. I want to say a special thank you to my sister-in-law Razi for opening up her home to all of us during the Shiva'ah and preparing all of the setups, the chairs, the books, the breakfasts, the lunches, the dinners for all the family. May Hashem bless her and bless all of my brothers and sisters and the entire family with al-Hukameen and as-Laharba. We should all learn from my father. As many people were saying, he was an angel. Should they enter a God Misharat and Rabbi Aminu? Amen.
Look at this. Abelim, come forward. צדיק אתה אדוני וישר משפטיך, צדיק אדוני בכבודך וחסד בכל מעשיו, ואשר דבר מלך שלטון ויאמר לו מה תעשה, והוא באחד ומשיבנו בנפשו יביטה ויעש, קטון וגדול שמעו בעבד חופשי מאדוניו, ובעבדיו לא יעמיד ובמלאכיו ישים תהו לאף, כי אינו שמע בן אדם תולעה. אסור תמים פעלו ככל דרך משפט, אל אמונה בן ערבי צדיק וישר הוא, דיין אמת, שופט צדק באמת, ברוך דיין האמת, ככל משפטיו צדק באמת, אשר איש רצח אותה ועבר אדם ככתובנה, טוב שם משם טוב, ביום המוות ומולדו שלו, ואנחנו נשמע את האלוהים יראה והדפיס אותה שמו, כי זה כל האדם, יעלזו חסדים לכבוד ינם שכמותם, המרחם על כל בריאותיו, הוא יחוז ויחמול, עלינו שם הנשמה, שמזכן, הישש והנכבד, משקיעו מערים בתי כנסיות ובתי מדרשות, גודל סלח בחסד, אוהב התורה בלומדיה, סעדיה שלום בן מרים, רוח אדוני תנחנו בגן עדן, בילה מוות לנסח, ומחר אדוני אלוהים דמעה מעל כל פנים, וחפת אבו עשים מהכל הארץ כי אדוני דיבר, יחיו מתיך, לבלתי יקומון, הכיסו ולנו שוכני עפר, כי טל אורות עליך בארץ לפעמים תפיל, והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, ובא להשיב אפו ולקו חמתו, תנוחמו מן השמיים. רבי חנניה בן הקשה אומר, עשה הקדוש ברוך הוא זכו אצל לפיכך, לבן תורה זו שנאמר, אדוני עבד מעש צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.